Okay, this is in response to the meme that says teaching a child not to step on a caterpillar is as important to the caterpillar as it is to the child. Somebody left this comment. They said, I agree, but what about the plague of grasshoppers in my garden that are eating everything? No natural predators, eating everything. I'm conflicted. I think I'm enlightened, yet I've been wiping them out. Interesting how being a warden of a land means a bit of death. Could it be that finding a balance means stomping out some opposing forces? Still figuring it out. So, I am standing in front of a field. A lovely green field, or what we think of green field. Now, let me just back up for a minute. As you may know, I am from the suburbs, okay? I am from the north side of Dublin. I grew up in a semi-detached house with a longish garden and no clue about nature. My family had no clue about nature. Nobody. We did not come from agricultural stock at all. So no idea about nature. All we had ideas was about grass and hedges and stuff like that. So from that suburban perspective, this field, let me give you a better look. It looks great. Okay. So what I've learned, I've been living in nature, in this wild nature for a long time, over 10 years. And it's not the first time I've lived in wild nature. I still haven't a clue about nature, but I've sort of made it my business to learn a bit more about it. And I've learned that that's not natural. That field is not natural. And those mountains over there, they're not natural. They look beautiful, but they should have trees on them. Okay? That field over there, lovely, beautiful green field, not natural. So, first thing I'd say is the main reason you're having trouble with the grasshoppers is the idea of a garden. As soon as you want to have a garden, you're in trouble. Or not you're in trouble, but you're in conflict with nature, because nature doesn't want to have a garden. Nature wants to do its thing. And this idea of no natural predators, that's not true. There are natural predators, but there'll be a problem because a species is introduced, for example. Like in Ireland, we have deer. They're gorgeous. Sika deer. They're lovely. They're so cute. I love seeing them. But they're out of control here, particularly down where I am, in Kerry. There's too many of them. And they don't have any natural predators. Similarly, rhododendron. Beautiful, lovely, fantastic flowers. They don't have any natural predators either. So they're out of control as well. And that's because they were introduced. Okay, it's an introduced species. Somebody had the bright idea of, oh, let's plant a rhododendron. Or let's have some deer, because they probably wanted to hunt them. Now they're out of control. They had the same thing in Australia with rabbits. And the mountains are like that here in Ireland, are bald because of sheep. Sheep are so part of the whole Irish thing, like the picture of the lovely green field with the sheep on it. You think, oh, that's nature, is it? And compared to a city, yes, it is. It is very much more natural than compared to a city, but it's still not natural. So, firstly, you have to, I think, accept the fact that the reason you're having problems in your garden is not because of nature being out of control. It's because we're out of control. We want gardens. We want lawns. A lawn is probably the most unnatural thing you could have. So when you think about proliferation of a species, I think it's probably helpful to think about it as how would you like um, if where we are now on what's called planet Earth is if that was somebody else's garden, they would be looking at it going, oh wow, the humans are out of control, they've got no natural predators. I mean, they sort of fight among themselves a lot, but they've got out of control. How would you like us to be dealt with? That's a good place to start with when you're thinking about how do I deal with other species. The other thing is eating meat and, eating animals. It colors your view on how to deal with things. It makes killing them easier, a lot easier. You don't even think about it as much. When you don't eat animals, you suddenly become a bit softer to them. So that's something to consider as well. So I got a lot of information from two people. One of them is called Owen Daltoun, no relation as far as I know. He actually lives not too far from where I do on this peninsula, just much further down. And he's rewilded a good few acres of land and has written a book called The Irish Atlantic Rainforest. Very good book. Very highly recommended to sort of begin to get your head around this way of thinking. Owen Daltoun. I'll put a little link, or maybe I'll put a little picture of the book up. It's very good. Highly recommend it. And he's very active on Twitter, I think, Owen is. And then the other person is Mary Reynolds, who I mentioned before on the podcast. And Mary started off as an award-winning landscape gardener. Like, she won whatever the big one in the UK is, the Chelsea Flower Show. She won that one year. Apparently they have a competition, and when she was very young, like 24, 25, something like that. Not that 24, 25 is very young, but it's very young to win the Chelsea Flower Show. Normally they're in their 50s. Anyway, she won that and had a bright future ahead of her as a landscape gardener, but then began to kind of go, I don't think this is great. She began to, realize that she wasn't really going with nature. She was imposing her will on nature and confining it and just confining all the wildness out of it. So she's written 2 books. Both are lovely. Both are chronological. The first one, which his name I can't remember right now, is more before she really got into the wilding and rewilding. And then the second one is she's fully into it. But she started a movement called ARK, A-R-K. And that stands for Acts of Restorative Kindness. And similar to Owen, it's quite easy when you get into nature, like when that's your focus in life, you can you see all these things that we're doing that are crazy. Like the forests here. Is there one around? There's a few of them. You can see them over there. Some of those forests, they look lovely, but they're not natural. They're all the same species. And when you walk in among them, it's dead. It's just dead in there. It's like the Twilight Zone in one of those pine forests. In the countries where they are natural, it's not as much. But when they're planted like that, they're awful. And from a numbers point of view, it's like, oh yeah, more trees, that's good. And people like Owen and Mary are going, it's not just any old trees, It's part of a bigger thing, You can't just throw trees at it. You have to, include the whole picture, So it's very easy to get upset. And both Owen and Mary are upset. So if you follow them on social media, you can see that. They're just frustrated, So this ARC thing that Mary started, she got sick of waiting for government, the government of Ireland, but just governments in general, to get with the program, to start doing the right thing for nature, not just what looks good. So her idea was, well, like, there's no point waiting for legislative change. Let's keep lobbying for it. Let's keep, focused on it, but let's get going now. And she started this idea. It's a beautiful idea of you let your garden return to nature. You let it go wild. And you put a sign on the front of it called, with ARC written on it. Like, this garden is a island of natural growth, of natural, like the natural expression of nature. This garden, it's not wild. I'm not lazy. I haven't just stopped mowing the lawn. I'm doing this consciously, and it has ARC written on it. And she's got templates on the website to do that. And her idea is to cultivate pockets of wildness around the world, and to create a patchwork of these pockets of and islands of wild nature. And that if we all start doing it, if we all start turning our gardens over to nature, or not turning them over, giving them back to nature and letting nature express and breathe a little bit, that we can create spaces for all the little insects and all the wildlife that are, being mowed out of the, harried out of all the places that they can be and have their little lives, So highly recommend Mary's work, ARC. I don't know the website, but I'll put it on the screen if I can, or I'll put it in the show notes. And Owen's work as well, and his Twitter handle. So I understand that grasshoppers are eating your garden and there's no natural predators, and I know that's difficult, and don't think about getting another predator to come in, which is what usually happens, and then then there's no natural predator for that. Oh, I'll get something in that eats grasshoppers, and then there's nothing that eats the thing that eats the grasshoppers. It's coming back to this idea of imposing your will on nature and thinking we know better than nature, and trying to beat it into shape. We do it in the garden, we do it in our bodies, we do it everywhere, and it's not really working on all fronts. Doesn't really work in the body, doesn't really work in nature. We think we're great, and we are. Like, we do amazing stuff, but there's so much inherent wisdom in nature where it just knows how to get on with things. And if we sit back and observe it, we can learn a lot more than we can, dominate. So yeah, no simple answer there. It's nice to have the lovely garden, and when you see the grasshoppers eating everything, it's disturbing. But if you can kind of see the bigger picture, it makes it a bit easier. You can let go of the idea of having a garden, even better. You can let it go back to nature, and that's even better.